Harrison County Commission meeting to order for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. Order if you would rise and join us in communication. Please.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for all the people in this room, young and old, our interns, those of us that have been around forever. Lord, we just ask for peace and kindness in our lives. We ask that this meeting and to have your shadow over top of it with the Holy Spirit present in this room with us. I hope all get home safe to their families this evening. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't see anybody sign that.
You want to stand up to speak publicly here? Is there anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak publicly? Anyone on Zoom wish to speak publicly? Hearing none, we will go to 11 o'clock. To conduct a public hearing with respect to the proposed further amendment of project number 2, tax increment financing district in Harrison County designated Harrison County Development District number 3, White Oaks, and matters relating thereto. I assume I need to open the public hearing at this time. I'm taking this head, so consider the public hearing open. Who wants to speak to public hearing? Anyone? For or against, or have anything to say? Hearing none, I guess we're closing the public hearing. What else do we need to do? Anything?
There'll be a separate resolution later on the agenda.
Okay,
I'll
this is
speak
just
to
the hearing part.
Just the hearing part.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Public comment, consent agenda, what's the play?
Commissioner Clerk,
Motion to approve consent agenda, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 3, payroll change notices, A through K.
Commissioner Clerk,
Motion to approve number 3, A through K. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 4, minutes and or amended minutes from previous meetings. It looks like there's just one from May 17th.
Commissioner Clerk, one from executive.
Motion to approve minutes from May 17th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 5, requisitions, purchase orders, invoices, as shown on A, vendor list of payments.
Commissioner Clerk, under this case.
Motion to approve number 5A, vendor list of payments. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Review, discuss, consider budget revision, Parks and Recreation, add dollar amounts to the following line items. Line 212 printing, $1,000. Line 216 M&R repairs, $2,000. Line 219 rents, $2,000. Line 221 dues, $500. Line 222 dues, $1,000. 223 professional services, $1,500. Line 341 materials and supplies, $4,000. Can somebody explain?
So these are the items in Parks and Rec budget that they are over on, that they've expended in these line items. So they are just moving money around within their account to make these line items not be in the.
Do we know what it takes?
Yes, so
Where to
travel,
from and to.
travel. Well, line 214 will be taking $3,000. Overtime, line 108 will be taking $2,000. Parks and Rec new equipment, Line item 459 will be taken $7,000.
Did I miss something and it's not, that's not on here?
It must not have been on there. It should be on the agenda.
So can we make that motion approved as stated by the administrator that identified what these lateral loops were?
So. It's.
Sorry, I don't.
That's all right. This is what they asked and can you?
Oh, geez. It's not enough for me to see it.
I'm thinking.
Okay, forget it.
So these are the accounts we haven't listed, those are the negative accounts. This is what we're, taking from and adding to.
Probably should have. Okay, as long as the numbers match.
You want to adopt that in the record, what you have?
Well, it's on, it's in.
Okay, so motion to approve and adopt the record as stated by administrator.
I also have a question on why we're taking money out of new equipment. Nowhere else they could have found the money in equipment, parks, equipment.
I believe with that equipment line item, they have the current budget of 31,000, we're taking $7,000 from, and that leaves them with, before the $7,000, they still had 25,800 left in that line item.
So basically, we're taking purchase new equipment, putting in the dues and services and supplies.
Yes,
Instead of equipment.
correct.
Not for just you.
That's all.
We're exchanging that.
Parks and Rec, new equipment.
Correct.
And there wasn't anywhere else to get the money.
We could have taken a little bit here and there from each of the different line items, but at this point in time, this late in the fiscal year, we do not have any planned equipment purchases that would exceed that amount.
Okay. All one question.
So the motion is to approve as stated by the administrator. Any further? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No,
Motion carried. At 11:05, we have an estate hearing to allow Charlotte Henry to administer the will of Ada B. Moses. We have someone here representing the estate. Is Charlotte Henry here? Do we know if she was notified yet?
I do. She's not in the hallway.
I don't have it here yet.
mentioned the table hearing until such time as Charlotte Henry
That she'll have to get,
appears.
because they'll have to reschedule. So, additional notice. Okay.
All in favor, table?
Yeah, that's why I think
Okay.
motion to table.
Motion to table. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, number 7. Consideration of approval of project fund requisition for payment of costs associated with the project to be financed from proceeds of the Series 2019 bonds issued for the Charles Point Economic Opportunity Development District Series 2021A and B Development District number 3 White Oaks number 2 and Series 2008A Charles Point Project number 2 North Marine Bay improvements. There is A through D.
Motion for A through D.
Motion to approve number 7, A through D. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion carried. Okay, at 11:10. Virginia Rockwell ATV race, Rockwell Philly Farms Enterprise, West Virginia.
Where do you want me to stand?
Right there.
You can sit.
You can sit down if you want, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we're having a race at the farm. And last year we had 2,000 people at the race. And I think that's the third largest congregation of people in Harrison County. It may not be. This year, it's supposed to be 2,500 to 3,000. They're already pulling in with their RVs and et cetera from all over the state and out of state. And I just wanted some publicity for it so people know that we have something else in Harrison County.
Thank you, it's exciting.
Thank you.
You'll fill up our hotels and our, so plenty of our good food here in Harrison County.
Right. I mean, they have to buy gasoline, they have to buy food. A lot of them stay in the hotels. So,
Thank
I
you
mean-
so much.
thank you.
Madam,
Virginia.
Madam President, I'd like to mark for the record that, on the agenda, it says that this event is the, 17th and 18th of June, but it's actually the June 10th and 11th.
Thank you, Madam Administrator.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, number 8, review, discuss, consider budget revision circuit clerk, $8,500 from 403-109 extra help and add to 403-108 overtime.
Motion approved, please.
Motion to approve. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 9, review, discuss, consider budget revision circuit clerk, $1,000 from 403-109 extra help. Add to 403-221 circuit clerk training conferences.
Motion approved, please.
Motion to approve. Number 9. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Review, discuss, consider access and remediation letter agreement between Harrison County Commission and Lloyd David Cummings.
This is one of the houses on Copeland Avenue in Eastview. One of the several that we're wanting to take down. He has signed a, agreement saying that we could, the county could take it down and we can put a lien on this property.
Is this one near the,
Yes,
Monster.
it's right across.
okay,
Motion approved, please.
okay, motion to approve and fix the necessary signatures?
Yes, please.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 11, review, discuss, consider Mind Pharmaceuticals, Inc., West Virginia, statewide opioid settlement agreement.
So this is another one of the statewide settlement agreements, for the opioid lawsuit that we have going on. It'd be a fixed signatures like we've done with the other companies in the past. And hopefully, Mr. Medea can come next week and just get us a status update of where we are with this lawsuit.
And as far as that's concerned, the one thing that we've been asked, and we're often asked this week, is we don't have a dollar amount. We'll wait on that until they give it to us.
Correct.
It'll be a percentage of a dollar amount.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. What's the pleasure with number 11?
It's just a big signature, Madam President?
Motion to affix the proper signatures
Yes, please.
to the agreement. Is there any further discussion?
Legal?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 12, review, discuss, consider purchasing an Explorer for OEM.
I believe this is a request to purchase a vehicle for, our towing and compliance officer who falls under OEM. Commissioner Hinkle?
I think that, gentleman runs around in a vehicle that's got a couple 100,000 miles, we expect him to run all over the trailer in Harrison County. And I think we need to, update the vehicle so that he's in a safe vehicle, and something that's easily seen when he's out on the road. So I would like staff to look at whether or not we can purchase a new vehicle.
Madam President, I did reach out to our head mechanic as requested, and he believes that the vehicle that, Mr. Woods is in is fine for what he does around the county, and he would not recommend replacing it at all.
Is there an action to take on number 12?
Motion to purchase vehicle. OEM.
Motion's been made to purchase vehicle for OEM. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Number 13, review, discuss, consider a resolution authorizing the acceptance of funds for the Harrison County Community Corrections Program.
This is the grant that we apply for and receive every year for, pays partial salaries for 3 of the community corrections employees.
This goes so far, Michelle, I can't even explain to you.
It's a great grant.
It's absolutely, I
That's
can't,
a great program.
I think we're never in it.
Yeah.
Motion to adopt, please.
Motion to adopt,
Accept and adopt.
accept and adopt. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Number 14, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle.
Number 14, review, discuss, consider Farmland Protection Board moving forward with the applications for Richard Law and David Romine to include title search, baseline survey, and appraisal. Did you want us to speak? Did you want to speak to this bill?
We have visited with both of the landowners and that they're still in agreement to move forward with the application to put those properties under lease for farmland protection.
So the proper motion right now is to move forward with the application.
Yes,
Motion to move forward with the application, please.
Motion's been made to move forward with the application.
Has an application been presented to you for review?
I have not. I've seen documents in the farmland protection meeting. I did not have anything here for this meeting.
So we're
We're perfect.
approving something that hasn't been presented to us. Just out of curiosity,
I didn't understand, David.
you said that we're going to do this, and I'm just trying to understand what we're approving. Because we don't have any written document.
We have the application, so before we can, to move forward, with the application process, after the application, we must have approval from the commission, to spend the money, for title search.
And I understand that, I'm just asking who has a copy of the application for us to see what's been presented to us that we're voting on.
I
You have a
can
copy
give
of
you
it?
that, yes, I can give you that.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I'd like to see what Mr. Treecost just said we're approving, and I want to know who up front's seeing what we're approving. We're approving something without seeing it.
Okay, but the planning commission doesn't have on record the application.
Yeah, I would like to add that the farmland protection had several applications, and these are the 2 that they have picked to move forward with.
Right,
correct?
correct.
I'm fine with that, I just,
You just need to see the application.
I can't say yes to something I haven't said. So I don't want you to take offense, and I want to say
I
no,
understand.
because I don't know what we're agreeing to.
Well,
Move forward with the application for them to be put into the farmland protection program.
so, I think in the future, then we better make sure that the commission has copies of those applications
We have.
before we ask for approval.
Guys.
I understand, but did you see him before?
It's been too long ago for me to remember.
Okay.
I'm saying, I'm just trying to figure out what we just did, moving forward with application, but not seeing it. That's all.
Well, it's a total of about 200 acres. One of them is on Blue Lick, 150 acres on Blue Lick, and, the other 50 acres is on Hastings Run. That's where the properties are located.
Because we're agreeing for them to do the search, survey, and the appraisal, so we're agreeing to them to spend money without anybody saying.
But it's their money to spend.
Only with our authorization.
Okay, motion's on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No,
Number 15, review, discuss, consider engagement for issuers counsel for all bond issues before the county commission. This issuer is also Mr. People.
yes, ma'am.
You want to explain or elaborate?
Yes, ma'am. We're in the process of working with bond counsel and restructuring bonds. I see that Mr. Heyman's here. I don't know if Mr. Heyman would like to speak to it, but an issuer counsel is somebody that works on behalf of commission. Make sure that all legally required steps prior to the issuance of bonds, including compliance in the state and local election meeting filing disclosure laws and other regulations or actions related to borrowing are applicable. Usually it's in concert with the recognized bond counsel. We have recognized Steptoe and Johnson as our bond counsel, but I do not know if we have recognized Steptoe and Johnson as our issuers counsel also.
So. So typically, we have served in both roles because we're most familiar with the transaction, and the work that we do with bond counsel has a lot of basically total overlap with the issuers counsel. If there's a situation where the local attorney has particular knowledge and handles certain aspects related to the particular project that the bond counsel would not be aware of, then typically we would, because, we haven't independently done that work, then we look to the local counsel to serve in that role and be engaged for that and give that opinion. Typically with the TIF bonds, we're so involved in doing every aspect that's involved with it that we're not really looking to someone else to handle aspects of it. So therefore, we feel comfortable giving those opinions as well. But it's up to ultimately the commission as to whether you feel more comfortable having separate counsel or not for that. And the only thing would be, it would be an additional expense. But we charge fees for issuers counsel as well, so might not necessarily be an additional expense.
And there's no conflict with you doing,
No. So it just depends on what the commission's preference is more than anything else.
So, but at this time, we don't have an agreement with Steptoe as issuer. Strictly bond
I don't
counsel.
think so. No, correct.
Should we have one then?
Personally, I think that, talking with, other legal representatives on our own legal in-house, I would feel more comfortable, and I think, if Trey would speak to it, I think that, it would not hurt for us to, with the projects that are about to go on and the dollar amounts that are about to be done, I think it's rather important that we make sure that all our i's are dotted and t's are crossed.
But just to make sure I understand, Mr. Raymond, that's what you do, because this is a unique situation where even our attorney wouldn't be necessarily able to.
I mean, it's I really don't have a preference. The only thing I would say, I would prefer that it would be someone that's already involved in the situation, such as Trey, because getting someone else educated and up to speed on what's transpired up to this point would be pretty considerable undertaking. Probably would involve a lot of expense for the commission.
So are you wanting an attorney? Step two to do both?
I mean, I think that's personally, I think that's a conflict. An issuer counsel again is to make sure that everything is done, and protected on our side. Years ago, this commission used to use issuer counsel and stopped using it for some reason. And I think that was totally a mistake. But, the issuer counsel says here will review disclosure, bond sale, and other legal documents associated with the transactions to ensure that representations, commitments, and obligations of the bond documents do not conflict with the issuer's other policies or against us. So, not into Tommy, but that's not what he's hired to do. He's hired to oversee the bonds themselves and make sure the bonds are issued. He's not hired to see that everything that's been gone through is to the.
Well, I may not be familiar with all the other aspects of the county's agreements and operations as much as your regular attorney will, because I'm not involved in that stuff. So there is that.
So I'll speak to it a little bit. So bond tip law is its own animal. It's not something that I deal with in my practice on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's a unique segment of the law. When I represent other municipalities and we have one issuer counsel, I always recommend that we go out and hire somebody because that's just not my practice area or my routine. And I think Mr. Raymond would agree with me. It's a unique area. And I'm not comfortable, and I don't think Alps, which is our practice area, would be very happy if Trey became an issuer's counsel. Whether you all hire someone else or go with SEPTA entirely up to you all as the body. There are a number of tips which have been in existence for years in the county. They're all flavored a little bit different, but I don't think it's a bad idea to have somebody serve in that role for you all at all, because information is useful, and the more information you all have, the better off you are when you make important decisions in the future, particularly given how many tips the county has. Does that make sense? Questions?
Only that the waiver could go towards step two of Johnson being so that they have their hand in all our tips that we do have.
The commission could execute, it would seem to me, this is just practical law that we would, if we would step to, there would have to be some type of conflict waiver.
Yeah.
I believe, because, and Tom can step in, he deals with this stuff more than I do, but it does seem there's a little bit of, I won't say conflict, but in some cases, the interests could align in different ways. Is that fair?
Well, I'm a little surprised that we're having this conversation today. Honestly,
Couldn't be surprised at any.
I would have appreciated probably a little bit of heads off coming into this. I would say, you know, the only thing that I would say that the tips, the only way I could see where you could say that there is a conflict or a potential conflict would be if one tip would be in competition with another. But like in a general context, you represent different businesses as a law firm. And just because those businesses compete, as long as they're not involved in the same transaction, that you're representing them both in the same transaction, competition between businesses in and of itself doesn't create a conflict. So I don't see any conflict in one bond counsel firm handling bond financings for all the different districts for that reason. And that's the way I would view it. And obviously, we've done it in the past and have believed that there was not a conflict or we would not have done it.
At the same time, Tommy, I think the motion, I can echo the word that we do a way for the, at least you want to conflict of interest, so that way the commission's protected as well as that, and that way this doesn't come up again.
Well, I think what's great is what we want to tell you next is that there's some case precedent that says that public entities can't waive the conflict. So if there is truly a conflict, you really don't have the ability to waive it.
I'm still searching for the conflict.
And I guess I'll just chime in is the question Commissioner Hinkle raises is there a conflict between bond counsel and issuer counsel in the same project, correct, David?
Yes.
And I don't sitting here know the answer to that because this isn't what I do. Okay? Tips and unique financing formations are beyond me. If you want me to look at it and try to give you an answer and talk to Tom and get an answer, I can do that. But I don't sitting here have a definitive answer because it's a new issue to me. Can I ask a different question? Have you served as issuer counsel before for the commission and bond counsel?
Yeah. It's pretty common.
In all tips, for the record.
It's very common, especially in any kind of sophisticated type financing, because your typical, the bond attorney is the one that's most familiar with the transaction and what is happening. And so they're the one that's best positioned to both serve as the issuer and the bond counsel in settings where it's reliant, like the utility context, where our city clients are issuing utility bonds. There are aspects of opinions that have to be given with regard to other activities of that entity that I might not necessarily know about. But in the TIF context and a lot of the other, well, I could just speak to the TIF context. I'm aware of everything that you guys are doing that has any bearing on the TIF district because I'm involved in it as bond counsel. And so therefore, I absolutely don't see a conflict in serving in both roles. And I've always seen it done in that way. I mean, in other districts where we're not the bond counsel, we're representing the underwriter or some other party involved in the transaction. It's very common for the bond counsel to also serve as the issuer's counsel. And sometimes there is no issuer's counsel. There's just the bond counsel. So that's my experience in what I see. But since it's been brought up, I mean, if you all feel comfortable talking to someone else about it, and especially if you think there's any inkling that I may have a conflict in serving in both roles, then you should talk to someone else about it.
I don't have a vote.
You got a motion on the floor, Madam Clerk?
No.
Make a motion that the Harrison County Commission look into hiring issuer counsel for all TIF projects going forward.
A motion's been made for the county commission to look into to consider engagement for issuer counsel in all TIF bond issues in the county. Is that correct?
Understand?
Is there any further discussion?
Can I ask a question? It sounds like we might have contracts on some that where we've already retained issues as well as bond accounts. So I think we need to also look at these tips pre-exist the time that I finished law school, okay? A lot of them do. So I don't know what you all have agreed to, if you have retained, what roles you've retained in it. But we need to look internally first to see what our agreements are and who we have retained and what we have retained them for. I think that's a fair place to start.
So our engagements on the other TIF transactions where we were issuers counsel would all specify that the engagement includes at the time that the bonds are issued. So there would not be any ongoing issuer representation by Stephen Johnson in those other districts, to my knowledge.
Thank you.
Motion's on the floor. Further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. But I agree with you, Trevor, maybe look into some of those and see what that is. I don't know, I mean,
The commitments, Tom's point is that the issuer council role ceases upon.
exactly, yeah.
So they're done.
Issues, so it's a good point.
Yeah.
There's no continuing representation in that issuer council role. It's
And do we revise
it's
your engagement letter to include?
It's transaction by transaction, and then when I do, and like, for instance, this Charles Point thing, it's evolved in so many different directions over time. For me to sit down and draft an engagement letter that covers every different direction that this is going to go in is nearly impossible. So that's why in most of these situations, I wait until the end where we have a transaction structure and an actual transaction and the bond sizing, everything, and what everyone's being paid. And then I come and I say, this is the deal. You guys want us to serve in this role, give the opinions at closing, and then we sign the engagement letter. Now, in this case, the preference was stated that we have a more general engagement letter so that we have something in writing to cover the restructuring situations and also parent lobbying work that was perceived that we were doing. So we put a letter in place that's very generic, but it's not ideal.
My last question to Tom, and I know we've already voted, but an issuer council usually works in, again, concert with the recognized bond counsel, and they advise in the legal capacity prior to the actual issuance of a legal opinion on bond issue. So I guess that's my question is on a legal opinion on bond issues that you're recommending and working on those issues internally.
Yes. Yeah. And so anything that the underwriter or placement agent will have a bond purchase agreement with the county prior to closing, or at the time of closing, that will state all the conditions to closing. And those conditions to closing would include, or could include, the delivery of an issuer counsel opinion. It's not required in every transaction. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. When it is, it's usually stated generally what that opinion is to speak to. And we review that, and if there's something in there that we don't feel like we're comfortable speaking to or that we can't speak to, then we would look and advise the commission and getting someone else involved at that point that could give opinions with respect to those matters. That's how we typically handle that.
Okay, number 16, review, discuss, consider execution of task order with Gratiot related to completion of survey work required as parts of CSX Transportation Inc. sale agreement.
Madam President, I put in front of you today the task order that was sent over by Thrasher Engineering for the survey work to be done on the CSX property. Chad is online. I'm not sure if he has anything to add to it. I did speak with him earlier. And although he put down $100,000 for the survey, it could be under that because it will be spent on an hourly basis based on time spent on the project.
Barry, when's this due after we sign it?
Pardon me?
When is this survey due after this agreement's executed?
So we sent the agreement to CSX Transportation Inc. in Jacksonville last week. They have 45 days to formally accept and get the agreement back to me. The survey is due. Get specifically in the CSX one. We requested the CSX extend the due diligence requirements under the agreement. They refused to do that, to give us any additional time, and that was after talking with Mr. Biller and Thrasher. And as I look forward, we have had problems getting surveys in this area before because it's just a difficult area and the old railroad maps are difficult. So within the due diligence period, we have to get them a survey for due diligence, not the due diligence period. Since they would not change it, I believe it's 120 days after acceptance by CSX. The reason and my thought process as to why we need to go ahead and get Thrasher started is if this transaction fails and we go to court, we're gonna have the survey anyway when we go in the condemnation setting, likely in federal court.
So we're asking them to come back in 30 days from today.
No, I'm asking them to get started now, and Chad can speak to this. This survey is gonna take a substantial amount of time,
And we have to complete it in 120 days.
120 days after acceptance by CSX of the agreement.
Right. So we approve it today, they accept it 3 weeks from now and it starts on the clock that minute.
Well, I wanted to start immediately.
It says within 30 days of execution
We shall furnish CSX
with
needs
the
and bounds.
meets and bounds. That's what I'm trying to make sure I understand in this, that that they're starting today, after today.
The Thrasher would start today, correct? In terms of the final survey, it's gonna be attached to the deed. And it is to provide them the meets and bounds, it is 30 days after CSX executed. My apologies. In provision 8.2 of the agreement. It's very short. We have to get them started if we want to do it.
Mr. Biller?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
All the departments at CSX and then they have to get. But we need the survey in.
Chad, we heard you.
Yeah, I believe everything Trey said was correct, and, you know, we're just trying to get ahead of it. And we have 30 days once CSX signs the agreement to get the final plat in place. Our surveyors are saying they think that's gonna be 75 to 80, so we'll have to put extra people on it, extra crews, and try to knock it out and get it done for you.
So the execution date is actually the execution date of the CSX agreement.
Yes, that's correct.
They refused. We tried to negotiate additional time because we told them said, look, this is a really hard part of the world to get a survey done quickly. We've had experience out there before, and it takes time, and they would not agree to an extension. Which is why I'm asking you all to allow Thrasher to get started today within its engineer of record role in relation to the retrofit.
So make the motion that Thrasher get started today with their engineer record role and execute this.
Well, so as I see, the contract needs to be revised to say that within 30 days of the execution date with CSX, not with us.
No, I want Thrasher to start
Today,
immediately, because we're gonna have to have the survey either way. If, let's say CSX doesn't sign in the 45 days, and they reject the agreement, and basically our option lapses, we're still gonna have to survey the property if we wanna go forward in condemnation or eminent domain, because we have to have a survey to affix to our complaint, which shows the exact boundaries and rights that we want to acquire in the condemnation.
motion as stated by the county attorney to start immediately.
Fix the proper signature.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I still have a problem with the price. Because there's nothing in this contract that you're agreeing to that says it's not to exceed. Just $100,000 project. Staff said that it was an hourly basis. So Chad,
Yes, sir.
contract says 100,000, but it says work will be billed not only to exceed an hourly basis based on time spent on the project. I think I just heard you say 75 to 85 days, you're gonna have to put a lot of people on it. Are you gonna be able to maintain under 100,000, or are we gonna be looking at more than that?
Well, it's hard to say, David. I mean, I think we'll know pretty quickly where we are. I'm hoping to come in under. I mean, that's always my objective, to come in under. So if we don't have major problems out there and disagreements with property owners and conflicts with deeds, it could go pretty quickly.
We've been trying to gather historically the old mine maps, the rail maps, worked with Charlotte to get some of them. I've talked to Chad about others. CSX refused to give us any when we requested them. But we're trying to gather the information to do this in an as efficient way as we can. Right, Chad?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We're trying to do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
So can we insert not to exceed 100,000?
Well, I mean, it says work will be billed on a not to exceed hourly basis based on time spent on the project.
Then you have $100,000, so I don't, that's what it is, and let's scratch the 100, we'll just pay whatever it is what we're saying, right?
I mean, that's up to you. If you want me to take out the 100,000, that would be fine with me.
And I'm just trying to figure out which one we're paying to.
It's gonna be hourly basis, David. I picked, our surveyors thought it was an $85,000 project. So I put in $100,000 just to make sure we had enough to cover to get the job done. So I don't have to come back and ask for more. So
That's what. Okay. Motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, any opposed?
No, because I don't know what we just approved. Okay, Trey, you'll figure it out.
Well, can we kind of clarify? So we have a,
No, sir, but the motion's been made, it's been voted
The motion's been
Where
made
it's
to
gonna
move
go
forward
with-
with the task order
as presented.
as presented. Number 17, review, discuss, consider to act upon a proposed resolution regarding the submission of a tax increment financing application with respect to the proposed further amendment of White Oaks project number 2 for the tax increment financing district in Harrison County, designated Harrison County Development District Number 3, White Oaks, in the submission of an application to the West Virginia Department of Economic Development for approval therewith and matters relating thereto.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there any discussion?
If there's any discussion that you all would like, I'm happy to address anything,
Would you want to speak to this?
probably briefly.
Okay.
So primarily, this is, the existing project plan for White Oaks, does permit residential sort of over the hill. Okay, what's called the second phase of White Oaks, but it did not originally for the first phase. And so the plan amendment primarily just authorizes residential in that first phase because that's what they'd like to do next. There's existing subordinate bonds outstanding in the amount of about 4.2 million. And that allows the developer to incur costs and then credit those costs into the bond. And then if there are revenues through development that come available in the future to repay that bond, then that's their mechanism to get reimbursed for those costs. And so MuniCap, the county had engaged MuniCap to do a revenue study to determine the appropriate sizing of the bonds and therefore the amount of reimbursement that those bonds can support. And MuniCap worked with developer High Tech to complete that study. And based upon the development assumptions that High Tech has for the property, the existing revenues from businesses that are already there, it was determined that the district could support approximately another 2 million in bonds. And so the application also addresses increasing the size of the subordinate bonds by that amount. And so the developer does have an ongoing project out there. You'll see with the pad sites along it's Route 73 there. It's under development. And that's basically supported by the existing bond. But there's other development that they'd like to undertake with respect to the residential on top of the hill that really needs the additional bonding capacity to allow the 2 million to allow for that reimbursement to occur with respect to that additional cost. So the public hearing has been had. The application is ready. It's been with the commission. It's ready to submit. If the county were to adopt the resolution, we would include that with the application and also the publication affidavit for the legal ad that was run for the public hearing and submit that to the development office. And then they would have 60 days at that point to come back and advise the commission as to whether anything else is needed or as to their approval. So that's where it is.
So we just need a motion to
To
approve
adopt the resolution.
I already made that motion.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Tom. Number 18, review, discuss, consider status of ongoing efforts to restructure special district excise tax revenue bonds and property tax increment revenue bonds issued by the commission for the Charles Point project potential executive session pursuant to West Virginia Code 69A 49B 4B9 to consider matters involving or affecting the purchase, sale, or lease of property, advanced construction planning, the investment of public funds, or other matters involving commercial competition, which if made public might adversely affect the financial or other interests of the state or any political subdivision.
So, I would like to update the county commission on status of the bond restructure discussions. due to the sensitive nature of ongoing negotiations, I think it would be most appropriate for that to be conducted in executive session, so you all would need to make that motion at this point.
Motion to go into executive session. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Hearing none. I have nothing. There's no action to be taken on number 18 at this time, correct?
Right.
Man.
Good.
And Laura had nothing to inform us of, and I.
There's
have
nothing on
to-
19. None of this meeting.
That's even all right. Now we're gonna motion to adjourn.
We should adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor, signify, well, that's your personal, that's your problem, not mine. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I don't plan stuff.
I'm sorry.